This one, 1905 to 1915. Poor girl's only 10 years old. Maybe that's one of the children's spirits they say they hear. Yo, what the is that?
Yo, what's...
Venturing into the woods alone at night can be terrifying. But what happens when you encounter someone, or something, you'd rather never meet? Like this first encounter, shared by the TikTok user Fuzzy Waffles. It captured something far more terrifying than anyone had expected. What began as a carefree night out with friends, just laughter, stories, and the glow of their campfire, took a sudden and unsettling turn. Out of the corner of the frame, one of the group seems to notice something moving in the dark. At first, it's only a glance, a moment of hesitation that could have been dismissed. But within seconds, that tension spreads to the others, and what was supposed to be a lighthearted adventure quickly escalates into something far more disturbing.
Yo, what the fuck is that?
Yo, what's...
Fuck! Run! Run!
Guys, wait!
Run!
Oh.
If you look closely, you can see it. A figure standing right by their tent as the group scrambles in panic and runs from the scene. It doesn't move, it doesn't follow, but its presence is undeniable.
Guys, wait!
Run!
Oh.
The video ends abruptly here, leaving no explanation, no follow-up, only questions. Who or what was standing there in the dark? Was it a stranger hiding just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to approach, or something else entirely? And if the group hadn't noticed it when they did, how much closer would it have gotten? If this footage is genuine and not some kind of staged setup, then that figure was likely the very thing the first friend sensed at the beginning, meaning the encounter had already begun long before the rest of the group caught on. The laughter and casual conversation that opened their night quickly unraveled into fear, replaced by a realization that something was very wrong. The clip quickly gained traction online, drawing thousands of viewers within days. Most who saw it were convinced it was 100% real, pointing to the shaky, terrified tone of the person holding the camera as proof that no acting could have faked such raw fear. Many claimed the shadow near the tent had to be something more than human. Some swore it resembled the infamous skinwalker of Native American legend, while others insisted it bore the traits of a Wendigo, a creature tied to isolation, hunger, and madness in the wilderness. In the end, there are no answers, only silence and the image of a shadow by the tent. Perhaps it was a passerby, perhaps something far darker. But what makes this clip so unsettling is the not knowing. And maybe that's what lingers with viewers the most. The idea that whatever was there that night is still out there. But not every unsettling encounter comes from the shadows of the wilderness. Sometimes it's found in the most ordinary of places. A parking lot, a passing conversation, a stranger whose words don't make sense. That's what Natasha faced on her journey, and it left her with a feeling she couldn't ignore. Quest Out West is the YouTube channel of Natasha, a woman from Montreal who turned her life upside down, quite literally, to chase a dream. After escaping a toxic living situation, she downsized everything she owned and moved into a Dodge Sprinter van with her 3 cats. Her goal? To wake up in the mountains of Canada's west coast, and so she traversed the country 3 times in just 4 months, facing every obstacle and sharing each raw moment along the way. Natasha's videos aren't the glamorized, highlight-filled van life often seen on social media. Instead, her content lays everything bare: the highs, the lows, the long, lonely roads, and the unexpected moments that test your will. And in this video, Natasha recalls an unsettling experience that took place during her second road trip to Ottawa. She was traveling with her friend Bev, and they had stopped at a Walmart in Merritt to spend the night. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The massive parking lot was almost completely empty, with only a handful of cars scattered far from where they parked. Later that evening, Natasha stayed inside the camper while Bev stepped out to adjust the truck vent. But within minutes, Bev returned inside, unsettled, before heading back out again. Curious, Natasha opened the door to see what was happening, and that's when she noticed a stranger approaching.
Can I help you?
No, I'm just walking over there.
Okay.
I've been living out in parking lots for many years now.
Okay.
And I've gotten in the well, it's not really necessary to explain.
I'm sorry?
I'm an old truck driver,
Okay.
and you can't get up in the middle of the night to pee when you're driving a truck.
Okay.
So you use a bottle.
Okay.
So then you dump the bottle beside the road somewhere.
Uh-huh.
The whole thing is a little bit embarrassing. I don't really need to explain myself.
No, it's fine.
I met an old trucker once who said that after 20 years he persuaded his wife to take a trip with him.
Uh-huh.
At the end of the trip she told him, "I'm never going to do that again.
Okay.
I can put up with the way you work 15 hours a day, with the horrible people you have to deal with the way you sleep with a gun under your pillow, with the filth and the crowding and the noise, but I can't tolerate the way you roll on your side and pee into a bottle."
All right. Have a good night, sir.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Are you guys traveling for long, or that's...
Well, it depends what our boyfriends say, so... Bye. Bye. Have a good night.
In the end, the encounter was less about what was said and more about the way it left Natasha feeling. The man had been friendly on the surface, even jovial, but his words and behavior unsettled Natasha and her friend Bev. Holding a full bottle of urine he never threw away, circling conversations that made little sense, and asking questions no stranger should. It was enough to trigger every instinct she had. And with people like this, you simply never know. So Natasha trusted her intuition. She ended the conversation, returned to the camper, and kept her answers vague, even inventing boyfriends, waiting nearby to ensure the man thought twice before pressing further. To an outsider, it may have seemed harmless, just another odd exchange on the road. But for those who live this life, the difference between harmless and dangerous can shift in an instant. And in that moment, Natasha knew it was better to stay cautious than to take chances. Encounters like this serve as a reminder. Out on the road, safety is never guaranteed, and sometimes even the smallest red flags are reason enough to walk away. Natasha's encounter proved how even the familiar comfort of a camper van can't always shield you from danger. And for James, that same truth would become clear when a night meant for rest turned into something far more terrifying. And that clip comes from the YouTube channel By the Curb, where James documents his life living in a camper van, often alongside his wife, Helen. His videos are usually a mixture of cozy van life moments and travel adventures, strolling through small towns, discovering local pubs, and finding those quiet little corners of the UK that most people would never think to visit. For the most part, his channel has always carried a warm and lighthearted tone, a kind of digital travel diary where van life feels less like a challenge and more like a lifestyle of freedom. But this particular video was different. Instead of celebrating a charming village or a scenic road trip, James shared one of the most unsettling and frightening moments he's ever experienced while on the road. It was the kind of night that reminds anyone living this lifestyle just how thin the walls of a van really are, and how quickly comfort can turn into fear.
Hey up, hope you're alright. It's 5:29 AM and I have just had the most terrifying experience of my life. I'm only still just getting over it.
It was January 10th, 2025. James had driven up to Sunderland, planning to explore the city for an upcoming video. By the time he arrived, evening had already settled in, and the streets outside the center were quiet. After scouting for a spot, he found what looked like the perfect place to park. A dead-end street, away from the main roads, with just enough space for his van to blend in. Everything seemed peaceful, ordinary, and safe. Inside, James passed the time the way he often did, watching a few videos, scrolling through research notes about the area, and enjoying the quiet of being alone in the van. Nothing felt unusual. Eventually, he closed the blinds, settled into bed, and drifted off to sleep. He had no idea that in just a few hours, that sense of calm would be shattered by one of the scariest encounters he'd faced in more than 2 years of living on the road.
Falling asleep. Next thing, banging above my head. And you know when something completely... You know what it's like when you're fast asleep and something jolts you so much, you don't know what planet you're on. It's like my soul left my body, my heart. So I get up and I'm like, what's that? Who's that? What's going on? I didn't know where I was. And I pulled blind down. That was my first reaction. And there's a bloody face at the window. The most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. Face up at my window. I'm never going to get that image out of my head. It's giving me goosebumps on the back of my neck now. And then there was some shouting and some banging. I couldn't make out what I was saying because I were all a bit, you know, we're all a bit hazy. And you know when people say, oh, last thing you think of is getting your camera. Well, I thought of getting my bloody camera this time. I thought, I'm getting this.
And you see a on the front, you follow with the kitten. You follow, you don't follow with the kitten and on the back. You're not working that one. I'm not the third door. I'm not the private race. I'm not a first English footballer.
Fortunately, James had locked the doors before going to bed, and whoever was outside didn't seem determined enough to force their way in. But that offered little comfort. Parked at the end of a dead-end street, his escape wasn't simple. In order to drive away, he'd need to pull down the remis blinds, prepare the cabin, and start the van. A process that would take precious seconds he might not have if the intruder grew more aggressive. So James did the only thing he could. He stayed completely still, listening, heart racing, waiting.
Now, Reef, I don't know what it means. You see when you put on the dead people who you're supposed to look. Constant, I haven't really heard this one. I've got a new modern technology. You've got fucking stuff like this on there. You're a cameraman, you're shutting out all
Still there, look.
Not mind the two things done.
So I'm just hoping that it'll get fed up and bugger off.
What followed felt like an eternity. The man outside was clearly not in the right state of mind. He paced back and forth around the van, muttering incoherently, his voice rising and falling in fragments of sentences that made little sense. Sometimes he shouted, the sound sharp and sudden in the stillness of the night. Other times he fell into a low, eerie murmur. James sat frozen, barely daring to breathe. His pulse hammered in his ears. The tinted windows provided a small layer of protection, concealing the inside of the van from view. But James knew that if the man decided to push harder, or worse, break a window, there would be nothing between them. In a split-second decision, he decided to turn on a small light inside the van, not to invite confrontation, but to signal that someone was home. The glow filled the interior, and after a long pause, the pacing outside began to fade. The man eventually drifted away, his rambling voice still audible as he shouted toward other parked cars, slowly disappearing down the street. Relief washed over James, but it did not erase the fear. His body was still tense, adrenaline still flooding his system. For the first time in years of traveling in his van, he felt truly terrified. Even after the street was quiet again, sleep was almost impossible. James lay awake for hours, every small sound outside triggering another rush of anxiety. The van that had always been his sanctuary, a small mobile home where he could sleep safely wherever he parked, now felt fragile, exposed, and vulnerable. The encounter had left a mark that wouldn't fade quickly. For James, the night luckily ended without violence, without damage, without anyone getting hurt. But that didn't make it less terrifying. It was a harsh reminder of how quickly a sense of safety can disappear, and how unpredictable the world can be when you're alone on the road. And so, the next morning, James carried on with his plans, shaken but safe. Yet the memory of that night in Sunderland would stay with him. It was a reminder that even in the calmest places, danger can appear without warning. And for those who live life on the road, caution is not just a habit, it's a necessity. James's night in Sunderland was a reminder that sometimes the scariest part of travel is the living, breathing strangers we cross paths with. But what happens when the presence watching you isn't human at all? For Brian, that question was answered in one of the most haunted places in Amsterdam. This next clip begins lighthearted, with some friends camping together, laughing and enjoying the night as if nothing could go wrong. The fire crackles, voices overlap, and the mood feels carefree. But in an instant, that sense of safety is shattered. Out of nowhere, a strange sound echoes through the darkness, distant yet close enough to stop every word mid-sentence. The laughter fades, replaced by silence and wide eyes scanning the tree line. What had started as just another fun night outdoors suddenly turns into a moment of tension none of them could ignore.
Hear it? Get Trevor. Austin, get the light. Fuck. Hey! That was not an elk. Where's that coming from?
At first, they tried to brush it off, convincing themselves it must have been some kind of animal wandering close to their camp. But the longer they listened, the harder it was to hold on to that explanation. The sound grew louder, distorted, and strangely aggressive, far beyond anything they could recognize. And that was when the realization finally set in. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong.
Get my keys. Oh, get ready. Everybody, get in my truck!
Then, just as the tension reached its breaking point, the video cut off. No explanation, no follow-up, only silence. And that silence leaves behind the most unsettling questions. What was waiting for them in the dark? Was it something natural, a predator moving through the forest? Or was it something else entirely? Something that cannot be explained away so easily? We may never know. All we're left with is this recording and the chilling thought that maybe the story didn't end when the camera stopped rolling. That camping trip showed how quickly a joyful night can twist into fear. But what happens when fear is the goal? When someone deliberately places themselves in the middle of darkness to confront whatever might be lurking there? That is exactly what Tim Morozov set out to do. Tim Morozov is a creator from Russia, known for his daring adventures and investigations into places most would avoid. Abandoned houses, crumbling ruins, and buildings said to be haunted by forces darker than memory. His videos are never casual. They are attempts to confront what lingers in the shadows, armed with cameras, equipment, and a determination to uncover the truth. In this video, Tim sets himself one of the most dangerous challenges of all, spending the entire night in a house long believed to be plagued by something far more sinister than silence.
Так, сейчас нет сигнала. Видимо, пока что еще не стемнело. Получается, друзья, действительно, днем здесь активность паранормальная отсутствует. В этом доме она присутствует только ночью. Эми не пищит, значит, наверное, безопасно. Ой, черт. Смотрите, все иглы снова вторгнуты.
The night begins quietly, almost deceptively. So, the equipment shows no signs of activity, and for a moment it feels as though the building might be nothing more than ruin and dust. But as Tim moves into the attic, unease settles in. He finds some dolls, objects linked to stories of trapped souls, and they are pierced with needles, their forms twisted and disturbed as if someone had deliberately returned them to torment. The air thickens, and the stillness feels alive, heavy with expectation.
Так как это мучает кукол, я сейчас это вытащу все и сломаю эти иглы. Друзья, от кукол идет небольшой сигнал. Это значит, души здесь. Оно здесь. Оно здесь.
Твоя душа будет моей куклой.
Кто ты? Назовись. Я не боюсь тебя. Погас. Что произошло, я не понимаю.
The whole atmosphere changed. One of the cameras Tim had positioned catched a glimpse of what he believes is a demon haunting this house. And then, without warning, the silence breaks. From the spirit box comes a voice, clear and hostile, its words dripping with malice. Your soul will be my doll. Then, nothing. The device fails suddenly, despite being fully charged before the night had begun. The unexplained shutdown leaves Tim in darkness and confusion, and what should have been his lifeline to understanding has now become useless. The house seems to breathe with him, waiting, listening.
Вокруг дома словно кто-то бегает. Я подозреваю, что здесь есть какой-то человек, который вставил иголки обратно в куклы и о котором говорили души. Якобы это человек, но не совсем.
Sounds begin to rise outside. Measured footsteps circling the building, too heavy to dismiss as animals. The thought becomes unavoidable. Perhaps someone else is here. Or perhaps something once human, but no longer. The weight of that possibility presses against every wall, and every corner now feels hostile. And if those sounds weren't disturbing enough, the tension suddenly breaks.
Слушай.
Tim is knocked violently to the ground by something unseen. The impact sending his equipment scattering across the floor. At first, it seems like nothing more than the unseen force of the house itself. But later, when the footage is reviewed, a darker truth emerges. A shadowy figure moves behind him. Faint, distorted, but undeniable. Tim, totally unaware of what he had just captured, was shocked and confused after being pushed to the ground by something he couldn't see. But this wasn't enough to make him give up. Instead, it only strengthened the suspicion he had carried all along, that something demonic was lingering within these walls. He started with a ritual, pouring holy water over the dolls and reciting each prayer, even as the house itself seemed to resist him. Shadows closed in, voices hissed threats, and the air grew heavier with every step. By the time he reached the final doll, the atmosphere had turned violent. But when the last words were spoken, silence followed. But it was not the silence of peace. His tools were gone, his protection weakened, and the night stretched endlessly before him. The hours that followed were a battle of endurance, with only the dim glow of his camera holding back the dark. Tim waited, cold and motionless, for morning to come. And when dawn finally broke, it was not triumph he carried out of that house, but survival. Whatever dwells there had not been defeated, only disturbed. Some places cannot be freed, and some presences will never let go. But what do you think? Was this house just as haunted as Tim suspected, and did he truly capture evidence of something otherworldly that night? Or was it something else entirely? Tim's experience in Russia was marked by shadows, rituals, and an unseen presence that lashed out against him. But not all encounters happen deep in forgotten houses or in the cover of night. Some take place in the open, in places meant for memory and mourning, like a quiet cemetery in Amsterdam, where Brian's story unfolds. Brian's paranormal travels is a channel defined by quiet intensity, where the supernatural isn't sensationalized, but documented with patience, care, and a steady respect for the unknown. Brian's approach has always been different. He doesn't chase after shadows recklessly, nor does he dramatize every flicker of light. Instead, he listens, observes, and lets the places themselves tell the story. This time, his travels brought him to Amsterdam. Just beyond the edges of the city, past canals, busy streets, and the thrum of modern life, stood something almost forgotten. A cemetery known locally as the House of Question. It is a place rarely spoken of, where memory has been allowed to fade, and where time itself feels heavy. That night, Brian pitched his tent close by, prepared to spend hours documenting its atmosphere. His plan was simple: explore during the day, record what he found, and test whether the unsettling legends attached to this ground had any basis in truth. But the deeper he stepped into those overgrown paths, the more it became clear that this would not be an ordinary exploration.
All these overgrown graves, just look how nature is taking it back. How incredible. Oh, I was just walking here and I got some hits on the EMF. And it's kind of like I get this sense when I'm walking that I feel a sense of cold and eeriness in a way. Hard to explain. Like right now, I'm sincerely got chills. And I looked down and I saw the EMF going off. A real strange thing, my spirit app today, here in the cemetery, keeps on turning itself off. I'm not quite sure if that's a problem with my phone or is something in this cemetery turning it off. Doesn't want something to communicate with me.
Alone among leaning gravestones and ivy that swallowed their edges, Brian held out his EMF reader. At first, silence. Then, without warning, the needle spiked. Once, twice, flaring high as though answering something unseen. The air felt thick, almost charged. The cemetery, quiet only moments before, seemed to draw in its breath. Rays of afternoon light filtered through the trees, painting the ground gold, yet the warmth was gone. That glow carried no comfort, only the sense of being watched. Something was here, and it wasn't far.
Wow, how beautiful that is. Oh my, look at that. That's a huge one with like a stone fence there. Oh my goodness. It's pretty incredible. But I do have the sense that something is following me throughout the cemetery today. It's pretty incredible. So I'm getting the feeling like something wants me to go to this back. I try to avoid it because it sounds like in that part of the city there's a lot of construction work. You cross. Interesting. So I have the vibe to come over here. Oh my, that was loud. These trees are just absolutely stunningly beautiful. I mean, look at this. They're really incredible trees, and they've made such a beautiful park here. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I just got crazy chills. Crazy chills.
Brian found himself drawn toward the farthest corner of the grounds, the part he'd avoided until now because of the city noise bleeding in from beyond the walls. But curiosity, and something else he couldn't explain, pulled him closer. Each step forward brought another surge of energy from the device in his hand.
What did you just do? Did you touch me? Nothing. You just touched me? Was that you? Please don't do that again. That was not pleasant. I got a burning on the back of my neck right now. Okay, if that was you, please do not touch me again in that way. Oh man, I have to check when I get home. Man, this is crazy. And I noticed the noise over there from the construction is getting louder and more harsh. And I don't think that has anything to do with the graveyard, but maybe it's antagonizing the spirits here. But I had the sense it wanted me to come back here. So, look, I'm here. That's what it just said. I got the sincere vibe to come back in this area. These are children's graves. Oh, no, they're not.
The EMF no longer flickered sporadically. It glowed, steady and relentless, as though locked onto something fixed in place. But Brian didn't need the reader to know he'd crossed a threshold. He could feel it. The atmosphere itself had shifted. It wasn't just the suggestion of haunting anymore. It was presence. This wasn't him walking through a forgotten cemetery. This was him being noticed inside of it. Watched. Followed.
Fond memories here. Fond memories here.
That was when Brian saw him. A man. Old. Pale. His figure stood out sharply against the background of ivy and stone, yet he made no sound. He never spoke, never gestured. Brian walked away, carrying a feeling he couldn't really place, but it was not over. Yet.
This one, 1905 to 1915. Oh, the poor girl's only 10 years old. Maybe that's one of the children's spirits they say they hear here in the cemetery. Oh my goodness, and there's another one in here. Oh wow. Folks, I am literally, I'm not kidding you, I am being followed in here, and it's a really, really strange vibe. It's an old man, and it's not a, it's just, he keeps following me around, and it's really the creepiest thing ever. I had that happen at a cemetery in Paris, where some old dude just happened to pop up on me near a crypt, and in here, I literally have an old guy following me around. I've been going around the cemetery for a while. I stopped filming and I just wanted to take some photos and look around. This guy, everywhere I turn and everything, the guy is like literally right over there. And every time, and I said hello to him as I walked by, he didn't even respond. He just gave me a really weird look, one that I didn't appreciate.
Each time Brian shifted his path, the man did too. Each pause was met with the same pause. His presence was unyielding, his stare fixed, cold, and territorial. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't chaotic. It was controlled, deliberate in a way that unsettled more than if he had shouted or approached. Brian said hello, his voice breaking the silence, but there was no answer. Only that stare, heavy and unwavering, as though daring him to step closer. It left Brian with no other option than leaving. He had come to the cemetery with the simple intention of documenting what was left behind. A quiet camp, a short exploration, a video that might tell a small story of history and decay. But what he found there refused to be framed as history alone. This wasn't just a forgotten place. It was something active, something that chose to reveal itself in daylight, without the protection of shadows. Even after leaving, the weight of that encounter followed him. The silence of the cemetery lingered long after, stitched into his thoughts. Some places don't need nightfall to haunt you. Some places don't vanish when you step away. They stay, imprinted, pressing against the edges of your mind, long after you've walked back into the ordinary world. From the graves of Amsterdam to the ridges of Arizona, the settings change, but the unease is the same. Bunny and Beyond Van Life is a channel run by Bunny, who shares her journey of living full-time in her van while traveling across North America. Her content often highlights the quiet beauty of boondocking, the solitude of the desert, and the freedom of the open road. But in this video, while parked alone in the Arizona desert, Bunny encountered something that would leave her deeply unsettled. She discovered a trail that didn't exist on any map. No name, no pin, no satellite record. Just a faint path cutting through the ridges, the kind of place her instincts told her not to follow. But she did anyway.
I found a trail that doesn't exist on any map. No name, no pins, no record. But something about it felt off. And yeah, I went anyway. I had my dog with me. I wasn't afraid. It was deep in the desert. I was boondocking solo when my GPS glitched and showed a faint path cutting through a ridge. No signs, no warnings, just a barely there trail. So I followed it. Everything got quiet, like the air was holding its breath. There was wind, but no birds, no bugs, just the crunch of my boots.
The desert was quiet that day, eerily so. Though the wind stirred faintly through the brush, the usual signs of life were missing. No birds, no insects. Just the crunch of Bunny's boots on the dry earth and the steady rhythm of her dog padding beside her. But then he stopped. Hackles raised, body tense, refusing to move another step. Ahead of them, the faint trail led upward toward the ridge, and on the summit they found it. A pile of stones, and tucked beneath it, a single folded piece of paper.
Just a pile of rocks? A small cairn. Something was tucked beneath it. I pulled it out. A folded piece of paper, yellowed and burned at the edges. It said one word: leave.
It was enough to freeze her in place. Instinct took over. She turned back down the trail, her dog quick at her side. The silence of the desert no longer felt empty. It felt watchful, as if something had been waiting for her to see that message. Back at her van, the strangeness didn't end. It followed her. Every night at the exact same time, 2:17 a.m., the lights inside began to flicker. Her dog, normally calm, started growling at corners where nothing stood. And worse still, footsteps echoed across the roof of her van in the middle of the night, steady and deliberate, though no one could be seen. In the days that followed, Bunny tried to retrace her steps. She searched her GPS again, scanned the satellite maps, even walked back through the desert. But the trail was gone. No sign of the faint path through the ridge. No evidence that it had ever existed at all. It was as though the desert had closed itself back over it, erasing her discovery. What remained was the note, the flickering lights, and the sense that by touching something meant to stay hidden, she had crossed into a story not her own. The warning had been clear, but perhaps it hadn't been a warning at all. Maybe it had been part of something larger, something ritualistic, something she wasn't supposed to find, or maybe was. And now, every night in her van, the reminder lingers. Silence can be as heavy as sound, and in the desert, some trails aren't meant to be walked. Now that was all for today, folks. If you enjoyed these horrifying clips, click to see more on the video on screen.